Hello everybody, it's Sunday, so it's time for a story time. It is early, you can tell, I just woke up. But I have a great story for you today called The Foolish Tortoise. So today, my special guest is a Russian tortoise. So Russian tortoises obviously get their name because they can be found in parts of Russia. They're considered a Southeast Asian species, so they're found in parts of China, Russia, Afghanistan, Iran, Pakistan, Kazakhstan, and a bunch of other areas that are really dry and arid around those. So dry and arid means kind of like a desert, but not really a desert. It's like scrubland. So if you're ever out in the woods and the area just before you get to where all the trees are, where it's kind of long grasses and kind of hot and dry, that's the type of area that these guys like to be in. So because the area that they come from is really only getting like a lot of vegetation, maybe a few months out of the year, sometimes these guys are active in the wild only 3 to 4 months out of the year. The rest of the time they're kind of in a semi-hibernative state where they'll dig burrows and they go underground. So tortoises have lots of really cool features. So the old Roman armies used to form what was called testudinal formations, where they put their shields together so enemies couldn't get through, and they based it off the tortoise shell. They noticed that all these things formed together make it an impenetrable force. So armies started to model themselves after them. Now sometimes when people look at that shell, they're like, oh, maybe the tortoise can come out of it, but tortoises can't. Their backbone runs right through here. You can actually kind of see there's a ridge. Their backbone goes over there. Their ribs are here. So they're one of the few animals that have both an endo and an exoskeleton. So we've talked about exoskeletons before. That's with invertebrates, things like tarantulas. They don't have internal bones. It's a hard shell on the outside that protects them. But then there's animals like us and other mammals and reptiles and amphibians that have endoskeletons. That means our bones are on the inside. Well, theirs are a little bit of both, because this shell is actually bone. It's connected to the spine, the ribs are there like I mentioned, and it grows with him. He can't come out of this. So there's basically 3 parts. There's the carapace, there's the plastron, and then the bridge, which connects all of it. So sometimes you might see turtles or tortoises on the side of the road with injured shells, and they can survive with that being broken because it's just like a broken bone. As long as it isn't broken too bad, then they're okay. A lot of times they just grow over. Now, as you can see, he's got these nice long claws. These help him dig and burrow, but also helps him find food. So where he comes from, there's not a lot of food. You know, it's pretty arid and it's dry, so there's like very little vegetation. This will help him dig and find like the roots and everything. There's not a lot of water where he's at. They aren't really a big fan of water, but they can be in it if they need be. But the majority of his hydration isn't going to come from drinking water. It's going to come from the plants that he eats. So for a lot of tortoises, they're going to be getting 80 to 90% of their hydration, sometimes more, just from the plants that they eat, because those plants have water in them. So they're very, very good at conserving the water. Now, something new I found out today when I was looking up some additional information on tortoises, a group of tortoises is called a creep. So if you see a bunch of tortoises all together and you can say they're creepy, you're not wrong. That's the scientific name for a group of them, is called a creep. So one of my favorite features about a tortoise is you can see his mouth is a lot like a beak, kind of like a bird. That beak continually grows. So if he's not eating good vegetation and hard things to help wear that beak down, we sometimes have to trim it for him like we would a fingernail. So just like his thick nails here, it's made out of the same material up around his beak. So we'll sometimes just take a pair of clippers or even a Dremel and just grind it down a little bit. Doesn't hurt him. You know, it's like us trimming our fingernails. So he doesn't feel that. He can tuck most of his body into his shell, but not too many turtles or tortoises can go all the way in. Before we've talked about box turtles and hingeback tortoises where the shell flips up and that helps protect them. But if you look at him, he's got this nice thick armor on the front of his legs and on the back of his legs. This is because the legs don't go all the way in, so they have to act like a shield. So he can tuck his head in, and then just like a fighter, he's gonna put his hands up to help protect his face, and he's got armor all along those. So I mentioned that because the book that I'm reading today was given to me by my friend Jess, who is a teacher, but also she trains and fights with me, and she's training for a tournament, and so we always talk about keeping our hands up and protecting ourselves. So this tortoise could be a good fighter because he's got nice armor there and he can always keep his hands up and protect his face, because that's where You know, that's where trouble could happen. We don't want that to happen. These guys are pretty docile in nature. They're known as pretty good pets. They obviously like to walk a lot. As I mentioned, they don't really like to float in water. So when you have a tortoise at home, it's good to let them out and just let them wander around. If you've got a nice yard and there isn't any pesticides or fertilizers or anything like that in it, you can go ahead and let the tortoise walk around. He can eat and munch on all the stuff he wants, as long as we know there's no toxic plants there either. But they enjoy the natural sunshine. Just like other reptiles, they need UVB radiation from sunlight to process the calcium. So you'll have a nice strong shell and bones from being out in the sunlight. So that's a lot of facts about Russian tortoises, and there's a lot more facts out there. And just like always, if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the comments section if you're watching this on my Instagram page. If it's on YouTube, comments are disabled. That's because I intentionally make my videos for kids and I don't want people commenting on them. So YouTube has this thing where if you say it's for kids, they don't allow commenting. So if you do have questions, you can go ahead and go to the Instagram page and you can message me on there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. So on that note, we are going to read The Foolish Tortoise by Richard Buckley. So here we go. This is your star debut. You ready to read your book? You're looking down at it. Okay, here we go. Pictures by Eric Carle. All right. A tortoise, tired of being slow, impatient to get up and go, took off his large and heavy shell and left it lying where it fell. Hooray, he cried, now I've been free. I'll see the world at double speed. This is a silly book already because we just learned that tortoises can't come out of their shells. But it's okay because it's a book. Though faster, he was not expressed, as protection was far less. So when he heard a hornet's drone, the tortoise crept beneath a stone. A hungry bird came swooping past. He looked so fierce and flew so fast. The tortoise hid behind some trees and felt quite weak behind the knees. I don't feel safe. There's too much risk. If only I could be more brisk. He headed for the riverbed. A fish swam up. The tortoise fled. He's so weird looking without a shell. This is why we keep the shells, right? You don't want to look naked like that, do you? You like your shell. Along his way our hero went and almost had an accident. A snake with open jaws slid near. The tortoise backed away in fear. So a hare, a hound, a horse raced by. So rapidly they seemed to fly. The tortoise gasped, sat Google-eyed. I'll never be that quick, he sighed. He wandered on, the sun rose high. I wish I had more shade, he cried. A sudden thunderstorm swept in and soaked the tortoise to the skin. The wind rose up and soon the breeze was bending branches in the trees. The tortoise shivered, now I'm cold. I wish I hadn't been so bold. I think I've lost the urge to roam. I think it's time that I went home. Without my shell, I don't feel right. So when a shell came into sight, he climbed back in and said, good night. That was a really fun book. Although we learned that tortoises can't actually leave their shells, this book has a very, very good point to its story, that sometimes things aren't always better than what you think they are. So there's a term called the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes you may look at something and think, I want to be that way or I want that. But then you get that way and it isn't what you expected and it's not as good. The tortoise in this story thought life would be way better without his heavy shell and then found out it's actually a lot harder. There's a reason he has his shell. So Sometimes in life, we'll see things like that and think, oh, I wish I had newer shoes, or the brand new shoes, or a brand new iPhone every time it comes out. But you don't really need it. Sometimes you just think you need it, and things end up being okay not having it. So I hope you guys had some fun. We learned a lot about tortoises today. I thought I knew a decent amount, but I did some research before doing the story like I always do. Found out some extra stuff. My favorite is that group is Color Creep. I'm never going to forget that now. But Russian tortoises are really fun. I like having these guys around, and I hope you enjoyed learning about him. I hope you enjoyed our story. So there's our close-up. I think he sees himself. Look at Buddy. He's so cute. I love their little grumpy faces. He's like, what are you doing to me? I want to go back to sleep. So, oh, and that reminds me of one other quick fact that I learned. Every morning when I go to clean these guys, they always poop in their water. And I thought it was just because they're sitting in the water and it loosens things up and they go. Turns out they do it to hide their scent. They intentionally find water to go to the bathroom in. That way other animals can't smell them. So, I don't think any of you want to take a bath and poop in it. But if you needed to hide your scent from another animal, just know you could be like a Russian tortoise and poop in the water, and then hopefully no animal would know that you're around. But I would also hope that you get out and crawl away like the tortoise does. So that's your last fact. I hope you had fun, and we will see you next time.